Pope Francis I, the leader of over 1 billion Roman Catholics worldwide, has died. He was 88 years old. His passing comes on Easter Monday, shortly after being discharged from the hospital following a period of declining health. Pope Francis I continued the environmental legacy of his predecessors John Paul II and Benedict XVI in advocating for nature. Born in 1936 in Buenos Aires, Argentina, Jorge Mario Bergoglio came from a family of northern Italian origin. Before he joined the priesthood, he worked as a bouncer and a janitor. But everything changed when, at age 21, a serious illness led to the removal of part of his lung. That experience became a turning point, one that would lead him to become a Jesuit and join the Society of Jesus in 1958. In 1998, Bergoglio became the Archbishop of Buenos Aires and 3 years later, a cardinal in 2001. Then came a historic moment. On March 13, 2013, following the resignation of Pope Benedict XVI, Bergoglio was elected the 266th Pope. He was the first Jesuit Pope, the first from the Americas, and the first from the Southern Hemisphere. He chose Francis as his papal name in honor of the famed Saint Francis of Assisi, known for his piety and service to society, and was also known as the Green Saint. This choice reflected more than symbolism and signaled the direction his papacy would take. Francis wasn't the first pope to care deeply for the environment. Benedict XVI, often referred to as the Green Pope, released key writings on ecology, including an encyclical and a message for the World Day of Peace. His predecessor, Pope John Paul II, had also declared Saint Francis of Assisi the patron saint of ecologists and thus encouraged and supported ecological conversion. Against this backdrop, Pope Francis embraced environmental advocacy with urgency. In July 2013, he visited Brazil, where he underlined how European settlement had been detrimental to Amazonian indigenous peoples, and that the Church could not be like the exploiters. 2 years later, he released Laudato Si, a landmark encyclical that called on humanity to rethink its relationship with the planet. Quoting Saint Francis, he reminded the world that the planet is our sister, Mother Earth, and warned of the devastating impact of environmental destruction on the poor. In February 2020, he followed up with Querida Amazonia, a heartfelt appeal to protect the Amazon and the dignity of its people. He said, "I dream of an Amazon region that fights for the rights of the poor, the original peoples, and the least of our brothers and sisters, where their voices can be heard and their dignity advanced. I dream of an Amazon region that can zealously preserve its overwhelming natural beauty and the superabundant life teeming in its rivers and forests." He extended his advocacy beyond the Amazon. In 2022, Francis publicly expressed sorrow and shame for the role of the Catholic Church in Canada's cultural genocide of Indigenous peoples. He was vocal about ecocide, calling it a sin and urging the international community to recognize it as a crime against peace. He also called for a radical transition to renewable energy and planned to attend COP28, but ultimately withdrew for health reasons. Throughout his papacy, Francis continued the ecological legacy of his predecessors. But more than that, he helped bring environmental issues to the center of faith-based discourse. He showed that faith and ecological responsibility are not at odds. In fact, they are deeply connected. His papacy is a sign that religious leaders can no longer brush aside green concerns.